Okay, so we have quite a few people. So I think we'll go ahead and get started, at least do introductions. My name is Mindy, and I work for Chad's Coalition. Obviously, our event tonight is sponsored by Chad's Coalition. If you're not familiar with Chad's Coalition, I just want to kind of give a brief overview of what we do, and then I will introduce our speaker for the evening. So Chad's Coalition started in 2005 and was founded by Marion and Larry McCord, who lost their son, whose name was Chad, to suicide. And they decided that they wanted to do something to get out and talk to kids about suicide awareness and about mental health. Because I always tell the kids, knowledge is power. The more you know about mental health and what could possibly be going on, the more likely you might be to get treatment and deal with it in a positive way to help the situation. So we have 3 different divisions of Chad's Coalition. The one where I work is SOS, Signs of Suicide. My team goes into schools and we do classroom presentations on suicide awareness and mental health. We work with students anywhere from 5th grade to 12th grade. We also have presentations on self-injury, peer pressure, bullying, healthy coping skills. And for our oldest students, our seniors, we have something called Second Act, where we talk about mental health after high school and how you can access different services and what might be available and all that kind of stuff. Our second division is our family support division, where we have actually licensed clinicians who do therapy with students within a school setting, or sometimes within our office. And then our third division is our SO team, which is social emotional well-being. And that is our team that is made up of mentors. We go into, and Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, 65 maybe schools. And we have mentors there at all different levels. And they work individually with students, not doing therapy, but instead doing social emotional learning. There is a curriculum that they follow, and they go through that curriculum with students and talk about what students need to talk about at any given time, at their weekly visits. Those students are referred by teachers, counselors, even parents sometimes. Having kind of told you a little bit about Chad's, I am going to introduce Kate, who is our program director for the SO team, and she'll tell you more about what she does, and then she is going to lead our conversation for this evening. So I am going to let her take it away.
Hello. Yeah, so as Mindy was saying, my name is Kate Perry. I am the program coordinator for the social emotional well-being mentoring program at Chad's. Mindy did a very good job at telling you a little bit about mentoring, but yes, we are currently in 61 schools and working with 527 students. So we work with students in K through 12. And we are in, those schools are included in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and Jefferson County. So we work with mainly students in schools, but we also have students who we meet with virtually. We have a virtual mentor. And then we do have some students that come into our office in South County as well. And like Mindy said, we have a curriculum that we base it off of. We meet with students for 30 minutes a week. And also, like she said, we just kind of help them, guide them through some of the things they have going on as well. So with that said, I'm going to be giving our presentation this evening on brain development and childhood milestones. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about how all of that ties into social emotional learning. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. Okay. So again, we're going to be talking about brain development, different parts of the brain that are regarding social emotional learning, and some of the milestones that you will see specifically for adolescents, but kind of along that whole timeline. So first, we're going to just talk a little bit about some brain basics. So the brain is built over time. It starts from the bottom up, and this process begins in the womb and continues all the way through our adult lives. All of our early experiences, they really affect the quality of the actual architecture of our brain. And all of our experiences leading up to our adulthood establish either a sturdy or a fragile foundation for all of our learning, health, and behavior throughout our lives. So the interactive influence of our genes and our experiences shape our brains. So that's kind of, when I was in school, what we would talk about as like the nature versus the nurture. Our brain's capacity for change decreases in age, and our brain is the most flexible or plastic and able to adapt the early in life. And then toxic stress and trauma, they can actually damage the developing brain. So that can lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, our physical and our mental health. So when we are talking about the brain, we're going to be talking about two main parts when we're talking about social emotional learning. So the first is the prefrontal cortex, and that is the part of your brain that's just right here behind your forehead. So research shows that the brain reaches its maximum size around age 12 or 13, but that doesn't mean that your brain is fully developed. It's far from being complete. So this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, located directly behind your forehead, it is a part that is going to mature later in your brain's development. It's a very important part of the brain. It controls thinking ahead, sizing up risks and rewards, controlling impulses, and managing our emotions. And again, people in research shows that it's developed around the age of 25. It varies, but that's what the average age would be. So the second part that we're going to talk about is the limbic system. So we have the prefrontal cortex and then the limbic system. So this part is going to mature earlier than the prefrontal cortex, and it plays a central role in our emotional responses. So how we respond to the world around us. It's responsible for reward seeking. It's stimulated by peers and emotional variables. So when adolescents make choices in emotionally charged situations or high stress situations, those choices are often more weighted in the limbic system than the prefrontal cortex. So that would be more weighted in feelings over logic. So we are going to watch a short video by Dan Siegel. And at the end of this PowerPoint, I have a QR code and a website for some of his work. I think that he has created some really easily digestible books and different resources for the adolescent brain. So when we talk about the adolescent brain, a lot of times there's negative connotations that come along with that, like teens are so impulsive, they have raging hormones. Sometimes it feels like there's just nothing good happening there. So in this video, we're going to see that there's actually a lot of really amazing things happening in the brain around the adolescent time. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and I believe that I have shared my sound, so we will see.
The adolescent period is absolutely amazing. People often give it a negative approach, saying, oh, it's a time where adolescents are going to lose their mind, or they're just immature, or raging hormones drive them crazy. These are all not only wrong, but they're myths that mislead us and actually disempower us. Whether we're adults or adolescents, they actually give us the wrong message, and they make it so there's nothing we can do. So what is actually the truth? The truth is that instead of raging hormones, what's happening is we have remodeling in the brain. In ways we never could have predicted, we now understand two big things are happening in the brain. Things you as an adult can support adolescents in developing well, and if you're an adolescent, you actually can use this to help your brain grow in an optimal way. What are those two things? The brain is pruning itself. So imagine that in childhood, you're growing like a tree and establishing all these branches and all these leaves are growing. In the brain, that means connections among the basic cell, the neuron, called synapses, are being established. And you're soaking in the knowledge of the world, and that's beautiful. The tree is just growing, growing, growing. But then what happens, that surprised everyone, is the brain begins to prune itself. You start carving away some of those leaves, some of the smaller branches, even some of the larger branches. And the reason for the pruning is to specialize the brain. While the child is developing in ways that are really generalized, learning everything they can about everything they can, an adolescent is going to begin to find their passion, to actually find things they like, things they really love doing, and to drive their development in that way. So pruning is actually a use it or lose it principle underneath it. That if you don't use something, you're going to lose it. So if you like sports or like dancing or like music, do those things so you continue to establish those circuits. The second thing that happens in the remodeling adolescent brain is myelin formation. Myelin is a healthy sheath that allows connected neurons to communicate with each other in a much more effective way. How? It's 100 times faster, the signal that's sent down a neuron to communicate with another neuron, 100 times faster, and after it fires off, it's 30 times shorter the resting period that happens. 30 times 100 is 3,000. So when you've put down myelin, you've made your neurons communicate 3,000 times more effectively. That's a great thing. Now the great thing too is that you as an adolescent can actually use the focus of your attention to be aware of your emotions, aware of other people, to be engaging in activities, to be doing things with your thoughts that actually reinforce the parts of your brain you want to hold on to. So the good news about the remodeling story is that a field called neuroplasticity, how the brain responds to experience, shows us that what you do with your mind can change the activity and therefore the structure of your brain. So if you then come up with the statement that the ultimate goal of brain remodeling is to make an integrated brain, to differentiate areas, that's the pruning, and myelinate them, that's the linkage. When you increase differentiation and linkage, you make the brain more integrated. And an integrated brain is the pathway toward well-being. And you can do mind-sight exercises. These are exercises that increase insight, empathy, and integration. And if you do them as an adolescent, and you can also do them as an adult, you'll actually increase the integration of your brain as your brain is growing, not just during adolescence, but throughout the lifespan. And what's the outcome of integration? When integration is made visible, it's kindness and compassion. And so what we see through adolescent development is that our relationships become built on connections that are deep and filled with honoring each other's vulnerability, that's kindness, and supporting connections that are compassionate, filled with a sense of caring about other people and wanting to help them. This is the kind of world we can build as we move through life and support each other in our development.
So I really love that video. I think, like I said, it's a very digestible way to understand a lot of the amazing things that are happening in the brain of adolescents. So they talk about, as a young child, a lot of your learning is very generalized, but then as you get older, your brain is starting to specialize, and they have that phrase that's still on there on the screen is use it or lose it. So sometimes we think teaching children about social emotional learning is something we only do in early childhood or, when they're in elementary school. But if you see here, it's so important to continue that social emotional learning throughout the adolescence into high school, which is a lot of what CHAD's mission is. So I have one more video. It's only about a minute long that just kind of adds on to the understanding that this is another window of opportunity when you are an adolescent. So it talks about there's a window of opportunity from age 0 to 3 when kids are booming in their learning, and there's another window of opportunity as an adolescent. So they're going to explain that just very briefly.
We used to think the shaping of brain wiring systems tapered off after early childhood. But neuroscience tells us the brain goes through another rapid phase of change from age 9 to 14, a second window of opportunity. Early adolescence is a crucial period for brain development where many challenges begin to emerge. It is also a time of opportunity when rapid changes can be harnessed to set adolescents on a positive path. Puberty initiates intense hormonal changes when the brain is forming better and faster connections between systems, improving the ability to make decisions, solve problems, understand consequences, and to gain more control over emotions and behavior. At the same time, the adolescent brain goes through a period of greater sensitivity to social evaluation and emotional reactions. Increased sensation seeking, interest in social relationships, and exploration of identity all begin to emerge. Early adolescence brings on broadening experiences, acquisition of new skills, and formation of social networks that will have lasting impacts for the rest of a young person's life. To learn more, download the new publication, The Adolescent Brain, a second window of opportunity on the link below.
So I'll give you a second to look. Oh, I was going to say at that link. I have it at the end, but that is a really good place to look if you're interested in more information, is that UNICEF publication. I combed through most of it and it's fascinating, and you can't obviously go into too much depth in 1 hour, but if you are interested in brain development, that's a really good resource to look at. So, sorry about that. This, sorry, I guess I can't start there. This kind of just gives you a summary of that video. So you can take a moment to look at that. It just shows us the first window of opportunity from age 0 to 3, and then that second window of opportunity that they talked about from 9 to 14. And down here, it has that link, The Adolescent Brain, a Second Window of Opportunity. So I've been talking a little bit about social emotional learning. And what I mean by that is just the skills that we are equipped with for life. The ability to be aware of our emotions, identify how we're feeling, and to develop healthy coping and stress management skills. So we're going to talk a little bit about developing those self-regulation skills as it relates to what we were talking about with the brain. So again, adolescence is a vital window opportunity for building these core life skills and for parents, teachers, mentors, and other safe, trusted adults to provide support. So through learning, experience, and practice of social emotional learning, those connections are being built between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system that we talked about earlier. So children who experience high stress and exposure to trauma, they often revert to survival mode. And that makes it harder to build those connections between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. And that actually makes the limbic system stronger than other parts of the brain. But the good news, which is something that I want to continue to say, is that the system can be redefined by building more intentional responses, and that's where we come in as trusted adults, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a mentor, or any other adult that is involved in a child's life. So this image is an interesting image to show what we were talking about a little bit earlier, how the brain's ability to change is decreasing as we age, and then the amount of effort for that change is increasing. So this is just to kind of display that the earliest intervention possible is going to be the best. So again, this Center on the Developing Child from Harvard University is another place where you can read a lot about this. And I'll have a QR code you can scan at the end of this if you're interested. So where do we come in as trusted adults? So the basic principles of neuroscience, they indicate that early intervention is the most efficient and will produce more favorable outcomes later on, just like we've been talking about. So we've been talking about how that stress and trauma can actually affect the brain. So you can see from this image on the right, what a typical neural connection looks like, and then what a damaged neural connection looks like with toxic stress. So a balanced approach to emotional, social, cognitive, and language development will best prepare all children for success in school. So meaning that the academic part of school, the social part of school, the learning of communication, those things are all important and should be balanced. Children's brains require stable, caring, interactive relationships with adults. And that's not something that we just say. Science proves that any way or place that this can be provided is going to benefit healthy brain development. So again, in situations where toxic stress is likely, intervening as early as possible is critical to achieving the best outcomes. So we've talked about how sometimes a child can seem impulsive. They can seem like they have raging hormones, and maybe you feel like all hope is lost. So what are some strategies that you can support an emotionally reactive child? The first, and I think the most important, but also the most difficult, is to avoid becoming reactive along with the child. It can be very easy to get worked up along with that child or student, but the more reactive you become, it just spirals out of control. So remaining calm and modeling healthy strategies is important, and trying your best not to take it personally. The next is to acknowledge that child's feelings and validate those feelings, but keep it brief and simple. A lot of times I talked about earlier that fight or flight survival mode kicks in when they have those big emotions, and they're not going to be able to truly understand what you're saying to them. So keeping it brief and simple, and sometimes just writing it out until you can have more of a conversation, is usually best. So when a child is emotional, they often cannot process your words and ideas. Doing too much might make things worse. So once they are calm enough to talk to you, or you feel like they're kind of coming down from that heightened emotion, you can present some coping strategies. So some things that I've done with students during mentoring sessions is a deep breathing exercise on YouTube. Sometimes if you have an Apple Watch, it has that little deep breathing you can do. I've done that with students. Coloring pages, fidgets. Sometimes they just need to talk or vent, and any other coping skill that they have identified as useful for them. And that's something that's key, is every student is going, or child is going to have different coping strategies that work for them. So maybe something that works for you might not work for them. So trying to help them find which coping strategies work best for them is really important. And then just make sure you have an ability to walk away. Sometimes you just have to walk away. So having access to another safe adult in the event that you can't handle the situation is important. So if that's at a school district and you need to have a phone next to you so you can call someone, or if that's at home with your partner and you need to kind of come up with a game plan to, just be like, I can't do it anymore. I need a second. You guys can tag team it. That's really beneficial to have. So like I said, if you're interested in more information, I would highly suggest these 3 resources. That is where most of my research has come from. The Developing Child from Harvard University, that UNICEF publication, and then the Dr. Dan Siegel. He's written many books. He has other videos like the one we watched, and other resources you can access. So I'll give you all a moment to scan those QR codes or write down those websites. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer. And then after we do that, I want to talk to you all a little bit about our summer mentoring program. And I can also answer any questions you have about the mentoring program in general. Mindy, I don't know if there's anything in the chat. I'm not able to see it at the moment.
I do not see anything, but
Okay.
maybe Kate, after we give everyone a chance to write down the websites or scan the codes, if you want to, if you don't have anything else to share, we can unshare the screen and people
Okay.
can ask questions and you can talk about summer mentoring and stuff.
Yes, I have one thing about mentoring that I will pull up in case, there's a QR on there as well. So I'll go ahead and show that. Talk a little bit about summer mentoring, and then I can answer any questions you might have about any of this. So this summer from June 5th to August 4th, we are going to be doing a summer mentoring program. So that is actually 9 weeks, but with the anticipation that either that 4th of July week or another week, people are on vacation, it's about an 8-week program. So we are offering services virtually, so you can do those from home or wherever is convenient for you, or in our CHADS office that's located in South County. We are offering one-on-one mentoring services where your child will work with a mentor or small group, 3 to 5 students around your child's age that will work together and work through the curriculum. So on the right, you can see there that we'll be doing things to understand emotions, learn positive coping skills, identify trusted adults, and build and maintain healthy relationships. So there is a sliding scale fee, anywhere from $5 to $30 per session. But if you are interested, you can scan that QR code, or you can message us at soadmin@chadscoalition.org if you are interested or have more questions. We are definitely willing to answer any questions you have, or get you signed up if you're interested. So I'll give you guys a minute to look at that.
Hey, Kate, this might be a question that people have. Does a couple things. One is, does a student have to have been in mentoring during the school year? And number two, can a parent just call to get into the mentoring program, or do you have to be referred by your school?
So this, you do not have to have done mentoring before. This is just a standalone 8-week program for any student K through 12. And you do not have to be referred by a school counselor. This is something you can call on behalf of your own child and get signed up for. All right, I will stop sharing my screen. All right, if anybody has any questions at all, just jump on and let me know. So someone in the chat said, can a teen get mentoring during the school year if CHADS is not in the teen school? So during the school year, yes, we do continue to offer virtual services and the potential to come to the office in South County if you would prefer in person. Outside of a school, it is that sliding scale fee from $5 to $30. But we are in a lot of schools, so it would be worth potentially asking your school counselor or even ask me if we are in your school. Someone is asking how they can access the recording of this presentation. Mindy, I know that they said it was going to be on the website at some point.
Yeah, so before it even gets to the website, anybody who was registered this evening will get an email with the recording of the presentation. And then we are also working on getting those up on our CHADS website. But if you're on here tonight, you will get in the next couple days a recording of the presentation through email.
Does anybody have any questions about the brain development or the mentoring program in general, social emotional learning, anything like that?
Well, I do have a question. I'm a counselor. I wanted to know for professional development, do you all have anything I can send to my district or no?
As far as like a service that Chads would provide or just other resources?
Just for today, for PD purposes. I know you're not necessarily doing this for professional development, but I just wanted to know if do you all have anything that can show that I actually,
Oh,
I
like,
did this for myself, but I'm
Right.
just, you know.
I don't know, Colleen, who's our program director. I don't know if she's still on. She'd be the one to know. Oh, there she is. Okay. I'm gonna let her maybe refer to that.
I can get my camera to turn on. Yeah, we can send, if you send us an email, I'll put my email in the chat and we can send you like a certificate. This doesn't have continuing ed credits or anything like that, but we can at least send a certificate so that you can put it in your file. We do that pretty regularly. So I'll put my email in the chat. If anybody else needs that as well, just shoot me an email and I'll get it to you. It'll probably be about a week or so before I can get it to you. But yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate, did you see somebody said, are you hiring mentors?
I did. So I know that we will be hiring with the new school year. Our mentor positions are part-time. And everything is usually posted on Indeed. So if you just look up Chad's Coalition on Indeed, you can see any of the postings that we have.
Hello there. I'm a first-time attendee, and I was just wondering, I looked at you guys, like it shows like each month what each meeting will be about. I was wondering, there are some really interesting topics from January and February that I would love to get the video of. Is it possible that I can get that as well?
Yes. I'm gonna have to figure out how to make that happen, but I am assuming that if we're in the process of putting everything on our website. Colleen, you correct me if I'm incorrect. And so you'll be able to access those. Oh, here, they'll all be posted to the website within the next few weeks.
Okay, awesome, excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure. And then, last month we had one of our board members spoke, and it was about mental health in the Black community, and it was really awesome. And then next month, just while everybody's on here, I'll just announce what we're doing next month. We will be talking about the IEP process and the 504 process, mainly centering around that mental health issues, not necessarily learning disabilities. But if your child should fall within those categories and need some additional help, we'll be kind of talking about the process of how to make that happen. So that will be our topic for next month. And then somebody said, do we have a list? Oh, okay.
I put my email in the chat. It's just Kate, CATE @chadscoalition.org. If any other questions come up, you are definitely, I'm open to you emailing me and asking.
And the question was, what schools are we in for mentoring? Is that correct?
Yes. So I can definitely, if you're interested, if your child's school has a mentor, you can reach out to me and I can definitely let you know that.
Ah, interesting. Do you see the question there, Kate?
Yeah, so it's definitely a scary thing to think about, but the thing that, I said a few times in the video, she said, wondering what to expect if there was trauma in a child's life. And, this is something that I think you could definitely find in some of those resources too, is just that how resilient children are, and how that window of adolescence is a time where I'm not saying effects of trauma could ever be reversed, but just building those skills to deal with stress and with other things, like us being trusted adults, and getting them into these programs like mentoring, or just being able to support their social emotional learning at home with some of those strategies. I don't think hope is lost for children with trauma, and at any way, shape, or form. I think there's a lot of hope there.
I'm just going to jump in for 1 second, because we kind of talk about this when I go into schools and we talk about mental health stuff, and we kind of touch on trauma a teensy bit. The problem is it presents different in every kid, how they process trauma and how it impacts them. And I think that what Kate's saying is right on, is that we need to support our kids in whatever situations. We need to look for behaviors or personality changes that may be a result of trauma. Kids, we all know, if you're a parent, kids kind of act out in different ways, depending on their personality and what's happened in their life and things like that. And so I think we just need to be very aware and just be very supportive. And there are lots and lots of resources out there, and be willing to just embrace those resources to take the best care of your child that you can. So.
And where would one find those resources? I am a CASA for a child who had tremendous trauma in his life.
Right. Yeah.
And then has been in foster care and residential care for a while. And he's now 17. And I have just terrified as to what will happen next in life.
Yeah. So I'm going to be totally honest. My background is as a school counselor.
Okay.
So with middle school and elementary school kids. And with kids who are 17 or older, I'm not as familiar with what the resources are. And I think it becomes difficult because when kids turn 18, they're essentially in the state's eyes adults. And so I know, when I worked with younger students, we had a lot of different, oh, perfect. Colleen put something in the chat for you guys there. We worked with a lot of different mental health agencies. We worked with a lot of different, just community resources. The issue is because they're little guys, it's a lot easier to kind of place them into some type of a care situation or resource situation. When kids are adults, I think it's a little bit more difficult. First of all, to find those, and second of all, I think the expectation is that they take advantage of this stuff, as opposed to like a parent who drives their kids somewhere. So I think Colleen, she worked with older students in another position. And so I think she put something in the chat as a resource for you that would be probably more appropriate than what I'm used to working with.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. While you guys are mentoring children in the schools, how long do you all have like a certain period that you all spend with the kids, maybe a few weeks or months, or is it a sign that when you guys see that they have progress to a certain point where you're ready to release them, sort of say?
So we actually meet with that student for the full school year. So we build that connection. Our curriculum is about 20 to 25 weeks, and with spring break and different breaks, that usually evens out to a full school year. And then we actually have a program for a second year. We use the Brainwise curriculum, so we can actually see a student for a full 2 years, which I think is something really unique about our mentoring, is that we can truly build those relationships with the kids. And so I think it's really special in that way.
Fit a certain criteria like that, or it's just like open to anyone, any parent that feel the need to enroll their child?
So the students are referred by the school counselor, but you can definitely request that your student be in the program. And I'm sure most counselors would, agree. I truly think that mostly any student could benefit from this program, but I would say a lot of times there's like students who maybe have a ton of services. There are students who are doing really well and they're very noticed and have relationships with their teachers because they're outgoing or popular. And then there's kind of those students in the middle who sometimes get missed. So maybe they're not standing out, but maybe they're not struggling enough to have a lot of services in place already. So they just need a constant adult in their life to meet with and check in with. So that might be a student who just needs some help dealing with big emotions, maybe some students who struggle with social skills or need help with their friendships. So that's kind of usually how I explain it. But like I said, I really think any student can benefit from learning social emotional skills.
And that's a nice length of time for one student, a whole year, or however long, 2 years for the curriculum. Is it best as a school counselor do you all do small groups, or do you have enough mentors? Say, for instance, there are five, let's just say for an example, I have 5 students who could benefit from having a mentor. If I already have one mentor coming to the school that's spending a whole school year with one student, do you all have enough mentors to provide for one school? Like, would it be more beneficial?
Yeah, so kind of how it works right now is we are a little bit limited when it comes to funding because our program is completely funded by grants. So we have at this point more schools that would like our services than we can handle, but every year we're growing a ton. So like last year around this time we had it was 600 something sessions, and this year we're up to like 1,000 for the month, just for the month. So every year we're getting bigger and bigger. Schools can come to our wait list. We have mentors who come into the school and they usually are there. We have some schools that have a full day of mentoring and some that have a half. So a half day is 5 to 6 students that we get to see. A full day is 10 to 12. We do have some mentors that are at a school 2 days. So it kind of all depends on our relationships with the schools and our funding and some of that back end type stuff. But if a school, already had students in the mentor program, but they had other students that they'd like to be seen, they could potentially meet with that virtual mentor or in-office mentor if the school is within a reasonable distance of the office. So there are other options like that as well.
Now,
Sorry. I was going to say, when a mentor comes to a school and meets with a student, it's only for about 30 minutes, right, Kate?
Yes. It's
so one mentor could easily see 5 students in one day at a school.
Oh, okay, that makes better sense. That's understood.
Right.
So they're kind of stationed. Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
They're stationed at a school all day. So if they're there for a full day, they usually see about 10 students.
Okay, got it. So actually, ironically, I talked to you all today, and then somehow I got an email through my personal email, but because I was referring a student. So I just had to send home a consent form through you all, I guess, and all that in order for them to be seen, right?
Yes. Yes, everyone has to sign a consent form before they can start services. The parents do.
Thank you.
And Colleen also put a link in the chat if you're interested in getting on the wait list or learning more about the program. She put the link to the social emotional well-being part of our website.
Yeah, how long have you guys been doing this? How long have this program been running so far?
So, Colleen, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was around 2017 or 2018. So the mentoring program is the newest program that we have at Chad's. And then COVID kind of disrupt some of that. But then, we got back to swinging, and we're growing every year. Somebody asked, do most students complete just 1 year, or do most go through a second year? I would say right now, most students are just doing 1 year. A lot of times that second year is like if the student really, really wants to do it, or the parent has requested to do it another year. Oftentimes we do 1 year because there are so many students that can benefit from the program. So I would say that's the main reason, but I think it's beneficial for them to do a second year. I think a lot can be learned in that second year after you've built that relationship with the student.
I had a student, oh, I'm sorry. I had a student when I was doing mentoring last year who was a 5th grader, and it just so happened there was going to be a mentor at their middle school for this year. And we just felt like the kid, because of the transition from elementary school to middle school, would really benefit from like staying with a mentor. We recommended that she, in that transition year. And so that was a case where we really thought having a second year would be very beneficial to the student. So it just kind of depends on the situation with the kid.
Yeah.
Do you guys do follow-ups like after the student has no longer after the student is done with the program, or for 1 year or 2 years? Do you all ever kind of follow up with that student to see how well they're doing in school, or have you got?
That's actually something we've been talking about, to kind of see the effect of the mentoring program long term. Yes, we don't have anything formal in place. I would say informally, I personally like to just see some of my previous students in the hallways and ask them how they're doing and that kind of thing. But I think that's a really good thought and something that's in the works, definitely, to get some of that data on how the mentoring program is affecting students, down the road.
That can also enhance the grant portion of it as well.
Yes, definitely.
Even if you guys go into the classrooms and just have a little short chat with the teachers, just to see how this child has improved after receiving you guys' services, that would be great.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else? Again, my email is Kate, but it's a C, so CATE @chadscoalition.org. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or if you're interested in summer mentoring or mentoring in general. Let me know. I'm definitely willing to connect with you.
Question: do you guys do presentations for like other organizations or things of that kind? Like, I work at Crisis Nursery, and I think maybe I can reach out to the person that's in charge of doing presentation, maybe reach out to you guys and see if you guys will come to one of the meetings and kind of share this information with the rest of the staff. That would be really interesting because I think you guys are doing an awesome job for the children. And I was just wondering, are you guys open to sharing this information with organizations that work with children? Like doing
So in the division of the organization that I'm in, SOS, Signs of Suicide, we do a training trusted adults presentation where we talk about, it's more like suicide awareness, what to look for in your child, how to support your child through that situation if they're having issues with their mental health. So we do presentations for organizations on that. Kate, I don't know if I guess kind of from what you guys do, you don't necessarily do presentations, but we could do some type of a presentation. I've also come up with like a mix of a presentation, but our presentations outside of the school are more fee for service, but we could certainly talk about how to make that happen. And so I'm gonna put in the chat my email, and then you can reach out to me and we can definitely talk about that kind of stuff for sure.
Okay, sounds great.
And Colleen said, we're also happy to share information with our partners that are funded through the same funders, CSF, CCRB, et cetera. So we can definitely figure out something out for sure.
Great.
We are very much about getting the word out there. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have about 6 minutes. If nobody else has any questions, we'll dismiss class a little bit early. But Kate shared her email and I shared mine. And certainly, and Colleen is reachable by our CHAD's email as well. So definitely if you have more questions, along these same lines, if like, you know how that goes, an hour from now, you log off the meeting and you're like, oh, shoot, I wish I would have asked that. Absolutely feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to address any questions, comments, give help with whatever you guys need help with. So if nobody has last minute questions, we will say thank you for taking the time to get on this call. We appreciate you supporting students in mental health type situations, social emotional type situations, because we know that our kids are really struggling and we want to make sure everybody is well supported, kids and adults alike. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.